All right. Yeah. So I like that idea. We'll try and load this episode with like
pithy statements,
10-second pithy statements and responses that we can clip to YouTube Shorts. That's solid.
Just try and game the algorithm as much as possible.
Oh, God.
I think one of the reels I posted last week was over 2 minutes, and it just did not perform. And
I know I find longer shorts like just.
Well, that's it. I don't watch them either because it's just like, oh, this is going on a bit. I'm just going to see what's next.
Like we talked about him before. There's a Japanese carpenter I like called TWC Design that will just like make
shout out
like really friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod.
And he makes these like really intricate like joins and jigs for different stuff. And I've got like all of his designs for fancy circular saw jigs and router jigs and stuff that I need to make. But well, he does a lot of stuff with, like you never see him use a saw table.
Really?
Like the big saw table is a very like sort of American workshop type thing.
That's what
I don't have any space for this sort of thing, so he's but everything he does is with circular saws or miter saws. Like he's got a very good like laser guided miter saw that I'm like, ooh, get one of those one day.
That sounds
nice. There will be signs. It'll be me with my like laser guided miter saw just making shit furniture for the house. Actually, no, my furniture's getting better.
I mean, I think it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, but I need to redo the van at some point. That's the other there will be signs is when I upgrade this.
Upgrade the van.
The 4x4 high ace with the Land Cruiser running gear and pop top roof. I'm like, oof, that looks
that'll be good. But upgrading the pod studio.
Yeah. All right.
That'll be nice. Well,
all right. Well, let's kick off. We're back at the beach. It's like this is the good stuff. Welcome, episode 14, I believe today.
It is, 14. We made it, and the
sun we made it to the big 1-4 that everybody's always trying to get to.
That's a target, so we'll take it.
The sun is shining. It's absolutely glorious.
It's a beautiful day. It's winter in Perth, but you wouldn't think it.
Yeah,
it's lovely.
Yeah. I thought it was going to rain, so I was a bit dubious about coming to the beach, but I'm glad we went with that one.
It was a good call.
All right. Slow code.
What do we want to? Yeah, okay.
I want to talk about slow code. I've been like just balls deep in like coding methodology stuff and trying to really nail it in the last couple of weeks. I'm very happy at the moment with how things are going.
Yeah.
I'll let you tee it up for a minute.
I think the best way to start describing slow code is to circle back to vibe coding, and maybe we just try and understand what vibe coding is contextually. We set the scene, and then we can explore how we've adapted that to build out slow coding.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like everyone has like a slightly different definition of vibe coding, but there are maybe some consistent elements here. And like, I think it was Karpathy who kind of gave birth to this idea of vibe coding, and I can't remember the exact tweet, but I think he said something like, you just got to give in to the vibes and just ignore the code. Ignore that the code exists.
You spend more of your time like talking, so you speak the instructions, you use the microphone, you don't worry about typing anymore, you remove yourself from the code, and you don't really worry about what code it generates and how you do it. You just go with the vibes and you just fix stuff as you go. And like it's a very nice idea, and it just like melded very nicely with that Rick Rubin video of him like just vibing in the music studio and stuff.
Well, the big upside to it is it's just this big democratizing force for code, because now you are essentially coding in natural language in English for the most part, and you can just anyone can just build a thing, but it obviously comes with a heap of downsides as well. Which we'll probably get into, but I think the main, the recurring theme from all of these different definitions of vibe coding is always that you just ignore the code. The code output is just a byproduct that you don't pay much attention to. It's this necessary part of the process, but you don't really lift under the hood. You just kind of trust the agent to go and write the stuff.
Yeah.
And, because some people's definition loosely is just one-shotting a product from an idea. That kind of almost falls under the context of vibe coding as well. And, I've not necessarily seen a very clear-cut definition that I like for what this is, other than if you just forget the fact that code exists, that probably is some form of vibe coding.
In my world, I think of it as you just stop checking what the output is. It's like you give the agent control over writing the code, and your job is really to keep feeding it direction and requirements for what you're after. and then it will produce the code, and it could be absolutely terrible. Like, there could be all sorts of security problems in there. You really don't know because you don't look at it.
You don't know, yeah.
And it'll make a bunch of assumptions. Like, it'll regularly build stuff where it's just hard coded a bunch of values in there to make it work. Sometimes, like it depends on what you're trying to build, like how you go about it. But it can certainly move you very quickly from I've got this idea in my head to a product that you can at least play around with.
Yeah.
My general view to people is like, look, vibe coding is great. You should definitely do it and see what the thing is instead of thinking about what the thing is. But don't give it to anybody except yourself.
Yeah.
Like the vibe coding for an audience of one.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes a lot of sense because you get a lot of security for free by this only ever existing on your machine.
Yeah.
So.
I think it also crosses a psychological barrier as well for most people where they just don't believe that they can create anything meaningful because the code is the barrier if you're non-technical.
Yeah.
So that can be quite nice. I mean, that was like a liberating part of the experience for me really early on was just like going, oh, fuck it, let me just go and try and build something. And
because you did start vibe coding, right? Like you did.
I think I started
when
off
you started
coding,
with you made the ship game.
I made like a ship, like an Age of Sail game, because I was like, I just watched Master and Commander, and I was like, I want to build a cool but at the time also people had started vibe coding a bunch of games.
It was around that levels time, right? When you were around that competition.
Yeah, well, no, it was way before the competition, I think, because he'd started building his. Like a few months had passed. Yeah, it was the flight simulator, a couple of other things.
Okay, so when he'd started doing that, people were making games, but he hadn't formalized it.
But it hadn't formalized it yet.
Yeah.
And
it moves so quick, doesn't it? That's
it really did. And I'd started also like playing around with a game I hadn't yet seen, like a lot of the other kind of. There were a bunch of sailing-based games, 3JS games that people were releasing and popping on X and. Like I hadn't really seen those, but then I did start to see those, and I was like, "Oh, that looks good!" Like, and that looks good, and this looks good, and it started like just helping me build out ideas for the version that I was building. And again, like I didn't release that at all. I just had it run locally on the MacBook, and it was fun. It works. I have no idea how it works, and that was the thing. I kind of just like let that one go.
Yep.
But that was really just pure experimentation. Like I never had any intention of building something to release it, to even share it. I think I obviously like showed you, and that was kind of the extent of it. It was just a way to dip the toe in.
And the seascape is what forms the back of our glorious campfire scene, right?
That led to the campfire scene, which was much more deliberate.
Yeah.
The campfire scene was like, I'd crossed that chasm where I was like, oh, do you know what? I reckon if I spend enough time now, and I know we've talked about this in previous episodes, you kind of want something that is tactile and tangible to play with, a project, something real to actually learn on, not just trying to learn in the abstract. And so this was, I set this intention. I was like, well, this could be quite handy for us because we want to start a pod. Let me just play around with it, but I will be intentional about how I do it. And like over time, I think I'd kind of unwittingly formed a bit of a methodology for how I worked with AI and how I started to build things. And
I remember when the avatars were accidental, right? Like, I mean, you put them in as placeholders, and then I was like, oh, these look awesome. Just do that. Like, let's have a really elaborate, beautiful sea, and then 2 little 8-bit characters. Everything else. ChatGPT launched their image gen. Yeah. And so I was starting to play around with the image gen, and I was just like, oh, I really like this 8-bit vibe, Mario kind of vibe, and I just used my photo initially, and I was like, I wonder if I could just get it to generate a version, like an 8-bit version of me with a description. Yeah. So, the first time I did it, actually, the one that's in the actual scene, I did from text. I didn't give it a source photo. Yeah. And yours too. Yours was done from text. And then I've since created other versions from an image, but they're not that that different. I've been trying to edit mine to
yours has
give
a
me a shirt with some no shoes and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's just every time I do it it's just offset incorrectly, and I just can't be bothered to manually fix it.
Yeah. And that was the thing, I actually
when I get some time
went through, and that was just a struggle to just sit there and play with it to get all of the dimensions right. And GPT's image gen doesn't spit out sprites particularly efficiently either. The spacing isn't there. Even if you give it instructions, it's just a bit.
I think half the problem with the GPT stuff is that it will always output a fixed size and dimension image. So you probably almost need to make a template that goes into it.
Yeah.
That has like enough like black space around it that you can then cut out the correct bits.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It's
I've done
again.
that
It's just
it's a pain, but it works for us.
We've already got one.
I go through this process every couple of weeks when we've got a guest on the pod and we want to create a new sprite for them. So, but it's like, it takes like 2 minutes because I've got a template now. So,
all right.
But I mean, there was kind of this like unwitting methodology that started to form where I was like, I'll have an idea, and the first part of the process will be like pulling out Claude Desktop and literally just getting the idea out of my head and into a workspace. And I wasn't necessarily even asking Claude anything about it. I was just like, oh, I've got this idea. I'd just like to explore this idea with you. I'm not looking for any answers. I just want to share it. In a similar way that I would do maybe with you or with another human, although I wasn't really thinking about that at the time when I was doing it. And I really just wanted it to help me, not to think for me, but I just wanted to use it as a tool to ideate and get these thoughts, extract them out of my head, get them into a space where I can interrogate them as well and just sit with them. And I thought this was like it was quite a useful exercise because it forced me to just sit on the idea for longer rather than like the temptation is to just dive straight into a coding environment and start building, which is what I did do initially. I would go with like a very loose idea.
That's
and
the
see
vibe coding works, right? You can just say, build me an app that does blah, and it will build you something.
Yeah.
And it might do some of blah, but it's not really like you would never have hired a developer like that and just said like, here's one line, and then you come back like 6 months later and go, this is terrible. It's like, of course it is. You haven't done any of the work you were supposed to do.
That's it. I think interestingly though, this like ideation part of the process, like I never set any parameters for Claude Desktop. I never gave it a role. I never set any intentions. I just said, let's just explore this. In much the same way that if you and I were having a cup of coffee, we would just start like riffing on different ideas and you just explore them. There's like no intentionality there. It's literally just intellectualizing an idea to work out if there's something there. Does it solve a problem meaningfully? Is this something worth pursuing? Is it something worth spending time on? Is it energizing? Like all of these kinds of questions you just want to try and eke out of this process. And the one thing I learned from that, obviously, is that like all of these language models are just super agreeable. You know, like it will just tell you that you're brilliant all the time, and it will go along with every half-baked idea that you have. Even if you know it's kind of terrible, it will just be like, yeah, this works. Let's like explore this. This is a great idea. And so I started playing around with basically working through a prompt at the start of this process, which is like riffing on Jordan Peterson's definition of agreeableness. And so I would give it, I might just read it to you because I'd like typed it in here. So I said, agreeableness is a personality trait characterized by compassion and politeness, reflecting a tendency to prioritize others' needs and interests over one's own. Agreeable individuals are often described as warm, kind and considerate, while those in low in agreeableness may be seen as selfish, ruthless, or even vengeful. And so I'll like copy that in and I'll just say, I don't want you to be agreeable, but I don't want you to be like the other end of the spectrum. You need to find a healthy midpoint.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the don't be a dick prompt, you know, like I want you to think about this idea, but I don't want you to just placate my ideas.
Yeah.
And I found that's actually been quite useful to get it out of this like kind of polite mid-range kind of feedback that it just likes to give you on your ideas because it doesn't want to offend you. And that's been like more useful. But I think the whole part of the process has been for me to just dive deeper into an idea and get it to ask me questions about why I'm thinking about different aspects of it. Yeah. So I'm not like trying to outsource the thinking part of the work to a model. And I think that's been quite useful as a starting point.
So my... Sorry.
No, go on.
Finish.
Feel free to interrupt.
I feel like my way into this was... So obviously I was doing the work previously with Stackwork around their methodology for working with AIs, and then how you could bring that into like a bounty system. So there, we weren't necessarily getting the... Well, the idea was you would define tasks at a level at which anybody could do them.
Yeah.
And they would be simple, and they could go out, and it might cost you like $20 to $100 max for somebody to deliver some code to you, and it's a pull request in GitHub, and then you just review and merge that, and you don't really care if who that person is, if they're using AI, or good. You just get it back quicker potentially. So and it's a very interesting methodology of like how you apply AI to the thinking part of that.
Yeah.
And I think as I came out of that work, one of the things that was in my head was like, God, it's so slow getting just the human handoff and hand back of here's some work, do the work, give me a pull request. It's that I ended up parallelizing lots and lots of tasks.
Yep.
And it's very difficult in your own head mentally to have so many open tabs. Or to like, you're trying to do a feature, the feature's got, I don't know, like 12, 13 deliverables in it.
Yep.
They're all going at the same time, and it's great when they all come back together and work, but if it takes like a day or 2 days for that to happen, it's all just like sat in your head, and you kind of, stuff comes in the wrong order, and it doesn't quite, and you're like, I wish there was a slightly, there's like a mental like type that this works really nicely for, but I found it like, it was hard work working like that.
Well, I think
And that
the other aspect to it is time and space. The time and space is actually quite useful, I think, to sit on ideas, because like I feel like when you have the spark of a new idea and you start thinking about it, you start extracting different aspects of it. It's very energizing. It's a naturally very energizing process. But then a couple of days later, you might come back to it and be like, I don't know, was I really?
Well, I think this is a different thing, right? Because I was talking about the execution aspects of the code. Was just like, I already knew exactly what I was going to build. It had already all been planned out. So that part of the process had all worked.
Yeah.
And it was the kind of getting the piece done and built.
Right. Okay.
So then I went sort of the other end, and I was like, well, I'd done some vibe coding, and that was interesting. But I was like, I can't control this. And then I'd spent quite a bit of time in, okay, well, how can I, if the problem that I had was having too many things running in parallel at once, and then they weren't turning around quick enough that I could then close the tabs in my mental browser.
Right.
Like, how can I just execute that quicker so that I can move into a point, and I was like, all right, well, AIs are perfect for this, because if I can get the thing defined to a level that works, then I can just hand it to the AI. The AI can do the work, and I get the work back. And then it becomes like, well, how do you do that in a way that the agent doesn't just go off on one? And what I found was the issue there was more around, like, I would get into something like Rue code, and I'd work with its architect to try and outline a plan. But I think it might just be because the people that make these products are engineers. Is that it's just got such a bias for, right, great, let's go. It's like a real dog with two dicks problem, where it's just like, I just need to build this. As soon as you've said anything that gives me the slightest bit of information, I'm going to do a plan, and I'm getting it built right now. And I felt like, this just isn't working, because instead I'm falling back into this vibe coding problem where I'm just going directly with the thing as soon as it's out of my mouth. And as you said a moment ago, there's no space to look at that ideas. And so like that's where I was like maybe a few weeks ago. And I was like, there's definitely like a different way of doing this that's somewhere in between what I've been doing previously, where I would be very deliberate about how I design stuff up front, and it's very much more like, I always think about it as like it's like the product manager's version of vibe coding. Yeah. Where vibe coding is kind of like, it's just like an engineer not looking at what he's doing. If you were always like, say you were a product manager, you were an engineering manager or something like that, you're already not writing the code.
Yeah.
You might review the code, but again, if you had like a huge team of people doing stuff, you probably can't keep on top of all the code that's written, because there's more people writing code than you are reviewing the code. So therefore, you kind of need to just be very structured in the methodology of like how you describe the problem.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where we're arriving now with the slow code stuff. Is just, it's the methodology for how you work more like a PM.
Yeah.
With a set of AI agents that actually do all the work for you.
Yes.
And some of them help you design it. Some of them help you think of ideas, and some of them help you implement it.
Yes, you've kind of like jumped ahead on the next steps and the methodology.
Well, no, I was explaining how I got to it, because I came at it from the execution side. Right?
Yeah. because I obviously just like kind of left it there at ideation, but I think the next part of the process is just to take that like that vast like morass of text that you've just basically generated in Claude Desktop and try and turn that into some sort of functional game plan. So it'd be roadmap, PRD, that kind of thing. There's something usable there, and even then I would probably then go and spend some time thinking about the elements that we've just outlined. Sometimes I pull up a different model, though that's kind of like debatable whether there's any real value in there to just kind of get it to interrogate it and give me feedback on it.
And I think there is.
There probably might be. I think one of the things I started doing was like I would take it out of that environment, give it to ChatGPT and just be like, okay, you're my advisor on this project. Here's like basically all the docs we've just created in Markdown. I want you to review them. I want you to give me feedback and suggest improvements, but only where you think you can make like a 10x improvement in value here. And then like, because otherwise it will just like try to give you stuff for the sake of it. Like I didn't really want needless improvements. And I found that I think improved that part of the process for me to go and like just get a different perspective. But I mean, this is already sounding like a lot like how you might just work with people. That's the kind of the key takeaway.
I think that is the key takeaway.
It's like I wasn't really intending to do any of this stuff. I just natively found myself doing it because that's how I would have done it in the past with a group of people. You start ideating, you know, you might do it over a cup of coffee with people. Then you'd be like, all right, let's like structure all of these thoughts into some sort of game plan, some sort of roadmap for how we're going to execute it, build it out into phases. And then, once you've got that part of the process, I'd go back to Claude Desktop and be like, right, you are my technical co-founder on this. We're going to build this out together. But what we're going to do is I'm going to jump into Cursor, use the agent in Cursor to write the code. And you need to take these phases and break them down into sequential prompts so that we can control the output, and then we can review the output of each prompt. And then this was obviously like, you know, for me it was really valuable because I was able to learn more efficiently this way. Because it would provide like a number of gateways in each phase that I would be able to then just look inward and go, okay, what the fuck have we built here? Let me interrogate this code, figure out what's necessary, why it works the way it does, and so that was quite instructive for me.
So I think at a high level then we have these three phases, right? There's like the ideation and creation phase. There's the planning and like the planning phase, planning and design phase, and then there's the execution phase. So like vibe coding sits very much at the end of the execution phase, and this like it brings us back to like super fast waterfall. It's like the idea as we go through. So we've kind of been playing around with it. I think what's transpired in the last couple of weeks is we've really started to dial in the tooling and approach to doing this in a way. And one of the things that made a big difference to me was you always talked about being in Claude, and then you would go into Cursor.
It's very manual.
And I was like, it sounds super manual, and I don't want to do that. And like everybody else online, I was trying to get the doing tool to be more of a thinking tool. So like that's like what the architect role is in Root Code, for instance, or like you can talk to Claude Code like that, or client has plan think. But really, like it's, as I said, maybe it's just because they're written by engineers, but their plan mode is not very plan. It's like it's not what I want in a plan. And it reminded me of the like the Hemingway quote that we talked about a bunch around. You know, you've got to write drunk and edit sober. I put this out in Nostr the other day, and I said, look, I feel like Root Code is just writing drunk, and I need a sober editor. I need to figure this out. And so I thought, right, well, I need to like just really lean into this and figure out, well, what does my sober editing process look like? And it's almost like you can, and I think about those 3 steps. It'd be like, all right, you go drunk, sober, drunk. It's like you just implement, and as long as you hit this plan, it's fine. Right, creative side. Let's just be drunk again over here, but drunk in a different way. To maybe it's vodka Red Bulls over here. And it's like it's fantastic cocktails over here, or a nice wine. And in the middle, we're sober and we're just controlling the whole thing. And so I set up like a completely separate environment that was more. Like I don't find like IDEs aesthetically pleasing like at all. Like it's just not a nice place to be working on stuff. And so I like whilst I really like Markdown as a format weirdly and have done for 20 years now. I can use it extensively. Like I don't like working on Markdown documents inside Visual Studio, for instance. Like I want to do it inside something like Obsidian, where it does the auto previews for you. You can see exactly what you're writing. It's nicely shown. I was like, okay, that's the space I want to be in. And so I said, well, I could just do that. I could just be in. Because the beautiful thing about Obsidian is it's all file. This is file system.
Yep.
It's on your laptop. I can sync it across multiple devices. I was like, okay, now I could be planning at the house, which my overriding goal of like all the tooling that I build is, I wonder if I could do this whilst I'm going out for a walk instead of being in front of this goddamn computer.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I was...
Well, we did it over coffee on Monday.
Yeah, like exactly. I mean, that was like the crowning thing. Is like over the weekend, I sort of dialed everything. I was like, watch this. We just did it, but it was, it was setting up like a different environment where it's like, okay, well, let's assume that I'm going to take all of my product documentation, which is in Git and in Visual Studio, but it's messy. It's not really well structured, and I'm going to write the correct structure. And I will have product level documents that set out the vision, the values, the principles of the thing, the architecture, key integration points, key reference points with other systems that I'm using that are relevant for the whole product. And then there'll be like a feature level documentation around, exactly like what I need to implement the one thing that I'm working on right now that I'm giving. And then I use that with MCP Obsidian to then pull in the Obsidian documents into Claude Desktop, or you can do this with ChatGPT Desktop as well, but doing it on the desktop, so I'm not dealing with any, everything just stays locally. Well, I mean, obviously the API calls off to Claude don't, but like this is all design documents for open source software, so I don't care. So I don't really need to worry about that. And then I work on the design with Claude, going backwards and forwards on the principles of what we're trying to build and how, and I let it do the legwork of creating the documentation inside Obsidian, and then I will just review and edit inside Obsidian. So one of the things that's always bugged me about trying to work on artifacts in Claude is that I just literally can't get it to edit stuff correctly. It's like you're much better off just going like, all right, I took what you did and I just changed it, and here's the new version. Now tidy it up. Whereas I'm finding it quite good at just being in dialogue, thinking about ideas, and then summarizing it into a document. And then I take out all the nonsense that I don't want and trim it back, remove all the references to all the work taking about 6 weeks and so on. And that was like a massive unlock, because it was just such a nicer way to go through that design, that all of a sudden, instead of trying to rush through the design inside like a RU code prompt, I'm now just like, I might spend like half an hour on this process, but then it's done. Then I can take that, and then because again, like I've got the MCP server for Obsidian, although we could do this via file system if need be. I can then just go into RU code and say, look, review all the documentation in this folder for this feature. Make sure you're aware of all the product level documentation, the principles you need to follow, and then convert this plan and implement it with the orchestrator. And it will build out like a set of tasks and to-do lists that it needs to do, and what relevant information it needs to pull in at the right time, and then just logically walk through the whole thing. And my God, like the outputs are amazing.
I think the thing that really struck me was, because I had gone through this process so manually, this was the pain point. Like there was friction in the process, which we kind of talked about this last week a little bit. I kind of still have this lingering question about what gets lost if you just remove all of the friction from this stuff. And I don't just mean code, I mean like any work. You kind of learn through the friction, through the difficulty. It's kind of what grad programs are, right? You just throw people into the mess and you figure things out, and you learn and you get better and you improve. And I kind of just wonder like what we lose in the process. But that's a whole other topic of conversation. But this just really made sense to me when you started playing with it, because I was like, oh, like Claude Desktop's really good at like, this exploratory thinking phase, but it's like kind of terrible for like persistent state management. You know, like like Obsidian's really good like in this context as like this like external like memory system for what you're building. It's like you can actually just get the curated bits that you want, and it lives somewhere, and it's really like easy to explore and to operate and edit, and Yeah, I think that's the big problem with trying to do, like, because you do get to a point with, like, even with ideation with Claude Desktop, where it's just like, oh, there's too much now.
Yeah.
I don't know where to refine and where to pivot. It's just, there's too much mess.
Yep.
So this just made so much sense when I saw it. So I've been like trying to look at this as well this morning and use Obsidian, firing up Obsidian again.
And just to like describe the meeting on Monday, it was it's like sort of pull up. Like pull out the laptop and like log on to like my computer at home, and I go, oh, look at this. This is like I left my computer at home building this. I found like a SaaS framework I wanted to experiment with. So instead of actually doing it myself, like I got a plan built, chucked it in there, and then just jumped in the car and left it on YOLO mode, and it was done. Like when we got there, and I was like, yeah, it just built this for me when I was driving over. And I said, look, what we'll do is you had some ideas around like a content waterfall sort of process, and said, all right, well, let's just build it now in the car. So we took your notes, dropped it into Claude, like gave it it already had a lot of the context around how we were building these pipelines and how the system worked for automating stuff. And then it just decomposed your plan, gave us a few questions, which we just hit the microphone in the cafe. Like I like it's a nice form factor of just like you read back what it's saying and answer like as you would in a conversation. Yeah. And then we hit go, and then we just sat there like discussing other stuff for the next half hour, and beyond like just hitting approve every now and again, which I now also have a setup so I can log in from anywhere using my phone and just hit approve, which is useful. And then I figured out a way, so I've got like another PRD written already for adding little webhooks to it, so I can have it trigger a like signal message to me if it's sat waiting for approval. Yeah. So, because that's again, like what I want to be able to do is just go for a walk and then keep it going and just have a machine just doing my work for it. It's like I can load up PRDs quicker than it can implement it using this Claude methodology, and therefore I can just have different, like a computer with a ton of VMs on it, with each one being its own independent agent, and just cranking out changes. Like it's like a little dev farm. I feel like it's absolutely me. I'm so like G'd up on this at the moment. But
so I guess the other side of this is that your GitHub would be cleaner as well, right? So you've got like your thinking artifacts over here in Obsidian, and then you're like, I don't know, what would you call it, like shipping artifacts over in GitHub? Like,
well, the code.
That's the code.
Yeah, it's the code versus the docs. But this is like how it would have always have been, right? Yeah. You'd had Google Docs or something like that, where you're designing the thing, you're thinking about it, you've got space to think, and you've got time to think. And you could still do, I mean, we're talking about doing this quite quickly in narrow formats, but it works remarkably well. Like it's just moving into a different environment, changes the mindset. Like I can have stuff getting done in the background while I'm engaged in a different process of just thinking about things. Yeah. Like, I mean, I am starting to think that there could be a benefit of just actually migrating the doing work into a completely different system. Because you've got to give like to let it just run, you need to give quite broad privileges for stuff that I'm not particularly comfortable with. I don't really have anything on my personal laptop I'm too worried about, but I just prefer to separate those things out and have like a nicely contained environment. So I'm thinking like maybe get a Mac Mini, have some like, so then I can also run local models, which means I could just have the thing querying stuff all day. And just start running this as like a daily, just treat it like I've just bought a dev team for $2,000 for the year. Just run it like full out and see what we can build. But I'm like just blown away by how well it worked. Like once you get that really well specified features, really narrow, there's a bunch of work around like the system prompts and the hints as to how you get it to follow more accurate. I mean, I've got like even in the pipeline of stuff that we built, which is quite simple. I think there's about 200 unit tests in there. It's got a full integration testing suite, so we know if it doesn't work, and it has to run the integration test at the end, and it has to fix any problems that it's finding. And it's just it's not really like one shot in the way that like I engage in dialogue at the front end for a while to make sure that we've got a good set of, so we end up with, what goes into it is like kind of a PRD, then we generate the testing plan for like, okay, how do we phase this in a way that we can check each phase, that we know exactly what we've built is correct before we move on.
Yep.
Even we create all the mocks and the units around that as well. And then we get the technical design around that to make sure that follows.
Yeah.
And then we'll put that in, and sometimes we'll attach like an implementation plan, which if it's a long piece of work, it's just be step by step, just work through this list.
Yep.
And then you just let RU code go, and it can like reference back against those documents whenever it needs to. And it is like having a human do it.
How are you finding it sticking to the requirements of the docs? Do you find it just like going off in different directions and different tangents, taking creative liberties, or is it sticking pretty closely to the
Who knows?
Like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
That sounds like the word of somebody who's checking the.
That sounds like slow coding.
It appears to. It does follow the requirements. So I think this is where RU code shines a little bit. So one of the modes that it has is called Orchestrator, which I think used to be called Boomerang tasks. And it takes a larger task and then breaks down like, oh shit, there's a whale, I think, just surfaced off the coast there.
No.
Like there was a big, there's a huge like black shape, so it must be trekking. What time of year is it? That doesn't seem
unusual.
Quite, it is winter, I guess, but I thought it was more November you would see stuff like that. But.
So you never know what you might get on the good stuff. Just a whale.
I mean, that is definitely like distracting. But I swear, it looked huge. Like, there's like, I don't know.
Amazing. We'll keep our eyes
look,
open.
there's like, shit. I'm sure that was just a plume.
Oh yeah. I did see it. Yeah,
that's big, right? That's quite a long way out.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that absolutely is. Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah. Okay, you were live, breaking news live from
whale
Sea
sighting.
Beach. There's some whales like tracking up the coast. That's quite cool.
I mean, you say that's far away, but that's actually really close for a whale.
For if it's a whale, but you know what I mean? Like it's something quite large.
Big.
I mean, I've definitely seen seals and dolphins here.
No,
like,
that's
there's
way
another
too
one
big.
There. They're happening quite a lot here.
Yeah.
But they seem too big to be dolphins.
I don't think we would spot the dolphin from this far out.
Not that distance. Sweet.
That's amazing.
I mean, I've got no idea what I was talking about.
Yeah, neither. Slow coding.
It was definitely about that. Oh, shit, like that's.
So you're talking about RU code and
the orchestrated
mode.
stuff. Yes, yeah. So what it's good at doing is taking a larger plan, breaking it down into the steps, but then it takes each of those steps and writes just the content that the coding piece needs to do its job for that bit and how to test it. And that seems to be remarkably good
interesting.
at just constraining it, because it's not the coding agent that then fires up doesn't get the full conversation history and everything else it could be doing. It just gets the thing that you asked it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the big thing that makes the difference.
Interesting. I do find when I'm in manual mode and I might be using cursor, because I'll have all of the prompts stepped out in a phase. I do find the early prompts into cursor, some creative liberties are taken, even if I say just do this. You know, like it tends to do a little bit more, but I feel like if by saying just do this, it definitely sets some guardrails around it. But it's good because then I take the output and give it back to Claude Desktop, and it'll be like, oh yeah, that's part of prompt number 4 or something. That's great. I'll just amend the prompt accordingly, and so that's quite nice, and it's dynamic, but it's very manual. And I think this was like where I was getting to. The real limitation for me was this like execution speed, because while I freely admit this is very valuable for learning, you definitely get to a point where you're like, I get it.
Okay, now I just want to build stuff.
Yeah,
Let's
definitely.
Just get going. As I said, like if you think about it from the point of view of like a product manager, a project manager, or a head of engineering, like you don't write the code anyway.
Yeah.
So, like,
Exactly,
particularly if you were coming from a product point of view, it's like, oh no, I'm going to lose my ability to code. And it's like, well, you didn't have an ability to code. It's just that previously, to get through this first bit, you would have had to go and spend X $1,000s on, or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands on a team to implement it for you. You don't have to do that bit anymore. So, if nothing else, even just the as we've said many times, like the piloting, prototyping of apps is just so much more accessible. I honestly think you can build a system well with this. Like vibe coding is good for piloting.
Yeah.
This I feel like I can make point adjustments to apps
Definitely.
that work well.
It's interesting because I said like the limitation for me was like the personal execution speed, but it's really not. It's so much faster. It's crazy, right? I mean, like there's obviously like a big jump up again in terms of what you've built, the way you're doing it. But that was just like a personal frustration from having done this process manually, but it's still 100 times faster than doing it any other way. You know, like it's crazy.
I mean, one thing I feel like is that I've slowed down the vibe coding. Like it's slower than doing vibe coding, but it's reusable. So it's like it might be like half as fast as just going build this now, go.
Yeah.
But I can keep what I've just built. So all of a sudden it's 10 times faster because I don't have to keep rebuilding the sodding thing over and over again because I hit a problem where I don't understand what it's done and it's mentality.
Yeah.
So I mean there is some in terms of like how achievable it is by like anybody, like when I'm making the PRDs and stuff, I am actively making architectural decisions to how we do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So like that I don't like that's just not knowledge that everybody's got. Like if you happen to have worked in this sort of like, you know, head architect, head engineering, like very technical product manager type role, then you can probably do that sort of stuff and just dictate it as you go.
Yep.
But like this will come, and it's like, so one of the like weekend projects that I built with this was called Pipeliner, right? We talked about a second ago.
Yep.
And really what I wanted to be able to do was just run different dialogues between different personalities on a subject. So I started off by taking our podcast transcripts. It's a nice big chunky thing, and I would say like, I know we talked about like this concept. It's like I want you to like pull out from the podcast like this concept and all the things that support it, and then discuss it like 10 times. So it'll go backwards and forwards between the two different agents to see like how that conversation develops, and then give me a report at the end of it saying like, okay, here's what we learned, like, or I can have it like review the transcript of the conversation, turn that into social media posts or whatever. Like it's quite flexible.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons to do that was that it occurred to me that we do a lot of like call and response type interactions with LLMs.
Yeah.
But they think very differently when you put them in this sort of different conversational mode.
Yeah.
And particularly like they can take and develop like new interesting knowledge. Like when I do this with the podcast, there's interesting things that come out that I haven't really thought about, but I can see how they've been developed from the ideas that we've talked about, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I also think this is going to be excellent for architecture. Oh fuck, whale just breached. Yeah, you're definitely sitting on the wrong spot today. Maybe we should sit in the back and just stare out at the ocean.
I did see it before.
There's this massive splash. Like
Yeah,
I didn't
I saw
quite catch it properly, but this is cool. It's going to be so disjointed.
It's very unusual for City Beach.
It just feels like the wrong time of year.
Yeah.
I would have thought it would be November usually they start tracking
Yeah.
up the coast. It seems early, but who knows?
Interesting. Okay. We'll keep Whale Watch going for anyone that might be interested.
Whale Watch. It's a separate podcast feed. Find it at otherstuff.studio. What was I talking about there?
The conversational AI.
Yeah, the conversational AIs. I think this is going to be excellent for like technical reviews. Is you take your technical documents that you start with and you say, all right, you set up two crotchety old like architect types to be critical of the documentation, and you say like critique this.
Yep.
And even if like it's not that you then have to like take all of that into account, but once you've got that critique, you can then have another agent come in and say, look, here's a critique from these guys. They are quite negative by design, but you know, what's a good point? What's an unreasonable point? And let's go from there.
Yeah.
And like, there's a whole process of like, almost, if you think about it again, like it all comes back to, all right, we need to work with these things almost like they're humans.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, what's the meetings that they're having? What are the discussions they're having? Like, how are those discussions formulated? Like, how are we facilitating these things? And what comes out of that is then a set of processes that you can automate with these like little fake humans.
Exactly.
And you say like, yeah, discuss this, pick out the weaknesses, then think about what they said. Like, is there anything that's reasonable in there? Okay, well, for that one, then let's make that change. And
you're right about
good.
You're right about the quality in some of the outputs as well. Like it was reading through a couple of the transcripts. Yeah, it was staggering. I mean, I think the lesson here as well is it's like expectation setting for what you expect out of these agents. In the same way that a human could talk to you for an hour and you might go, there was one thing there was like this nugget that was just so valuable, it was so good, you might walk away with, but there was an hour's worth of conversation and you just honed in on that one thing.
Yeah.
And that made the whole experience valuable. In the same way, I think these agents conversationally are similarly valuable, whereas I think most people might look at this and go, oh, well, you know, like I expect the whole thing to just be absolute gold.
Yeah.
And that's just unrealistic. In the same way that we kind of talked about the error rate expectation setting in previous episodes. It's like, well, you know, we have way higher demands around error rates for these agents than we do humans that we work with. This is nuts.
And we know these conversations are useful.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we do this as humans. We go and engage in these conversations, but we do it at a rate that might cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour. Like, whereas these things can be done in an AI world for dollars.
Exactly.
Like, you know, there's 100 times cheaper to run this in models than it is elsewhere. And then, you know, you run it on your own hardware, it's free. You just have them talking all day and all night.
And there are
just talk to yourself.
Endless applications where this is valuable as well. I mean, I talked to you about playing around with using agents to essentially red team, blue team stock analysis. I mean, ideally, I'd love to get that to a point where it can start to do discovery, but I think that's really going to be contingent on how good the data is that they have access to. But just to like put a stock into a conversation and allow them, and like obviously you give them like investment profiles. So I built one out as like essentially like a Warren Buffett, another one like an Ackman, another one was like Dalio, and you just want them to just be like
sit around the
conversing,
table and just talk about this.
Yeah, remove the agreeableness as well. Like that's just turn that slider right down and just let them go. And see if they can get consensus on it. I would be like, if I could get that up and running to a point where I'd be like, oh, do you know what? I'll just give you guys like $500 or $1,000, just like go nuts. It would just be like a cool test to put out in the world as content and just see if they actually if it actually works.
It would be interesting to see how well they do.
Yeah.
That one interesting thing here is it made it way more obvious to me like how important the system prompts were and then what you're inheriting from the models. So,
true.
Because I did I took the recent No Solutions episode where Gigi and Pablo talk about sovereign engineering and like the principles behind it. And I ran a transcript on that, pulled it out, and then set off a dialogue on there to say, look, I want you to review like the core guiding principles and philosophy of sovereign engineering, and I want to like a dialogue on it and then summarize it up for me as a group. And then I was quite surprised when I looked at the output from Claude, and I was like, God, it's really like fixated on like AI safety and a bunch of these like almost like effective altruism principles. And I was like, this is not what they're talking about at all, but you as an AI have like just imposed this value judgment, like to the point where it's just like, these guys are not being honest with themselves. They're saying all this, but that's not what's going to happen. It's like there was this like really like clear, like in the transcripts, you really see it when they go backwards and forwards and how they develop the idea. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's like really applying a bias to that. And it's noticeable to me because it's not my bias. Like I don't believe any of those things. And that's like, so it sort of hit me a little bit out of the blue. So then I ran the same thing on Grok 4, and it was just a completely different summary and conversation that happened, which would be true, right? If you,
of course,
like the person that you get involved in a conversation, and I think it was because it was more in this ideological space, like it mattered.
Yeah,
like so I feel like there's a lot of stuff where in terms of writing code, I almost don't care too much in the code execution, like what your ideological bias is, because you've got quite a tightly scoped thing to do. In that creative and design space, it really matters a lot more, like what you're ideologically imposed to do, because like that implies like how you would build the software. Right, like, it's a real pain in the ass to build a lot of stuff for like Bitcoin and Nostra and various like freedom tech things, because there's a whole ideology based in around like respecting the user, which like big tech doesn't give a fuck about. So it's a very different way of doing it. And it just came out really like obvious there. That was probably the main thing from running that experiment, was just like, and I let it go for 10 rounds as well, so it's a nice long discussion. They really developed the ideas, and then it really did reinforce its own bias through the model, and you could almost tell, you could almost see the system prompt getting injected every time, and it just got like turned up each time they did it.
This was Sonnet 4.
Yep.
Yeah. And you tested it with
I did Sonnet 4
well.
and Grok 4. Grok 4 is very different.
Very different, interesting.
Yeah. I think it has its different biases, but again, like its biases are probably a little bit close to mine, and so I probably wouldn't notice it as much.
I wonder, like, would it be interesting to just run different agents with different models in the same conversation? Like, would that? It'd almost be interesting if you could get them to like out their own biases that way.
So, that's interesting. So I did Sonnet 4 and Sonnet 4, and then Grok 4 and Grok 4.
Yeah.
I used Sonnet 4 to summarize each time, but I could do Sonnet Grok.
Yeah.
In the conversation, just see how they.
That might be
come
interesting.
out with stuff.
Yeah, I must say the other thing that I find myself doing a lot is asking AI to prompt based on like a description that I've given, because I just feel like it's naturally quite good at it.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes the context, like I can get a little lazy sometimes in my own descriptions, especially if it's gone on a bit.
Yeah.
And I'll make assumptions, or rather I'll ignore assumptions that should be set. But it's quite good at, if I give it a piece of information, I'll just be like, okay, like take this, construct a prompt based on the various elements that and structure it the way a language model would like to read this, and I'll give it back to you. I mean, that's obviously part of this manual processing bit that I'm doing a lot of, but I feel like that's also made me a much better, like, I hate the term prompt engineer. Like, I just think it's a bullshit term, but I feel like I've gotten better at writing prompts when I'm in the mood for it. Some days I am just a bit lazy with it.
Well, but I mean, this is the thing. I just can't be bothered to write prompts.
Yeah.
Like it just feels like a waste of time, because you can just give them like partial information and it works.
Yeah.
But then you see like when it comes down to if you're going to execute something really quickly, it really does need to be delivered. I mean, so this is because I think what we're exploring is like that pipeline thing might feel like a tangent, but that is, I think, how you would run a technical design review.
Yeah.
So you think about the process that you would go through with humans, and then you map it into bots, and those bots just work for free, like a million times faster than you. So fuck it, you can afford to have a meeting all of a sudden, and then in 1,000 years, all the bots will be sitting around going, that meeting could have been an email, that could have been an API call. What are we doing here? But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah. But there's different thinking styles for different things. Like when you're doing the execution, you really do want a predefined list of stuff and say, just fucking do it well. And then that's what like those execution tools are good at. The middle bit around the designing, it does feel a bit more free form and models, and I think we're going to have these different ways of doing it. And then you've got like the just capturing an idea and turning it into something. I mean, one of my favorite things to do. So I said to you, like on the van, I was listening to DHH talk to Lex in the podcast. Yeah, like a 6-hour podcast, and I thought, all right, well, give this a crack.
Yes.
That feels like it could pass,
Meaty.
pass a little while. It gives me something to have on the list. I've run out of everything else. And at the time, he was talking about like Ruby as a programming language and how nice it was to read and how they built Rails. And I was like, oh, right, I didn't know that's like the philosophy design. It sounds quite aligned to stuff I would do, but I don't use that. But, I don't do any of the work anyway, so fuck it. I can get someone to build it. And so I fired up, because I was driving at the time, so I fired up OpenAI into voice mode. And then just started talking to it about saying like, all right, well, I want you to go in, I'm interested in like how I could use Ruby on Rails to build like a SaaS framework. I want a reusable SaaS framework that has integrations into Square for processing payments. And I want it to have like a Google Auth, a GitHub Auth, and Nostr authentication. I want it to be able to do this and that. I want it to have like blog posts and stuff written into it. I want members areas. I want like dashboards, admin stuff. I want to be able to track visitors and stuff like that. And I said, right, okay. Then it asked me a few questions. I answered, and then it kicked off like a deep research piece. And the deep research piece is just fucking excellent for going from like vague idea to something really structured that you can then edit and go. But I got to the beach and I just checked that into the computer at home and said, crack on. Like there's a computer at home on YOLO mode, so it's like, just do this for me, and then we'll see later like what it does. Like as far as I can tell, it looked like the internet's down at home, which I don't understand because I was
communicating with it.
I was talking to the machine at home. I'm just like, how the fuck? What's going on here? So we'll figure that out. But
teething problems
like that sort of flow of just like I am discussing with you an idea free form, and then I'm just gonna, and like that's like the shortcut version to me. It's like here's an idea. I'm gonna go from I've just thought of this, to I would rather have like a working prototype that I can click around in and see where the rough edges are and how long it takes you to implement it. And I don't really have to be that involved in that process beyond I do the initial work, I get the plan, I copy and paste it over here, and I say review the plan and do it.
Yeah.
And then it does it. And I could, I could then implement those steps where I don't even have to do that. It just at the end of speaking out the plan, it sends like a request to a server that then tells my machine at home to go and build the thing. That would be simple enough.
I think so. What we're saying here is this is slow code. This is a methodology for building with machines, but it just more closely resembles human collaboration. It's like natively more what we're used to. Even if there are elements here of vibe coding, because you're not necessarily going in
Vibe execution.
Yeah, because you're not necessarily going and like looking at the code and seeing what's been output. So that's interesting. I think definitionally to just like set that and go, okay, there's a methodology here, and we call it slow code because it's more intentional. It's still 1,000 times faster, maybe more. Like I don't know, I'm just plucking a number. It's just incredibly fast to go and execute. At the very least, just go and prototype something to see if there's actually substance there.
It's slow code like slow food is how I think about it. It's like it's not that we're eating snails, it's that we're appreciating what we're doing and we're slowing down and being intentional about it. Like it's that sort of that's the slow.
And it's interesting too because I feel like everyone's just trying to jump to like the quick, like it's like instant gratification for code. I need the output as quickly as possible, and that's the heuristic by which I'm going to measure the effectiveness of this entire process. And I kind of feel like that's the wrong animus for this. The output matters, so let's be intentional about what it's going to be. But we can still get there just so much quicker and so much more effectively than we could in the past. And there's also a human in the loop element to this as well. Like I still talk to you about these ideas. Like you and I will still have these conversations where we just riff on like these random ideas that we may have already started prototyping, or we may just be in an ideation phase, or we might have the idea and just start running it as we did on Monday. But there's still like, we're still two humans. There's probably other groups of humans around that could, go and implement the same process. And I think this is maybe the key here. There's like a methodology we could build out that could just help people to execute on this stuff more effectively.
There's like support tools and like what's interesting about this is it uses a bunch of existing tools that I'm already quite au fait with, so I don't I've not had to go and like rebuild a whole product development system to be able to do this. Like kind of pieced it together from stuff that exists, that are using effectively the computer as the integration point, which again goes back to like a long held belief of ours, which is that like it's actually, this is just like a new thing a computer can do. Don't throw away all the other stuff the computer could already do. It's like in the same way, like not everything needs to be a SaaS and be in the cloud. Like it's super powerful to run this on your own machine because now I've got a big file system. Like I don't need to worry about that sort of stuff. I've got local models, I've got all sorts of integration points I don't need to worry about in the same way I would if I'm giving random websites access to random stuff and running remote MCP servers that I haven't been able to audit the code for. Like it's just so much easier. And I really do think there's going to be a place for just like where I would have previously hired a person, like I might just go and buy a Mac Mini or equivalent Linux box. There's not an obvious Linux box that I would go and buy, so I think it's probably going to have to be the Mac.
It seems like a pretty cheap alternative.
Well, because then you can start to run it 24/7. So next, one of the next things that's occurred to me is I actually think the endpoint for this might be Goose. So I've been starting to experiment with Goose a little bit. It's so flexible. So I don't know if people might not know this, but Block. So Block is the company that was formerly Square. That is run by Jack Dorsey. He has an agent system called Goose that you install locally on your computer. It has access to all sorts of different tools on your computer around, like can it read files, can it not read files, like can it run code, it can do coding, like there's all sorts of stuff, like, and it's got native like built-in support for MCP servers. So it was one of the first things that came out that actually used the model context protocol like in earnest. But it also has various things around. You could have multiple agents running at once. You can have multiple agents running with different system prompts. You can have like recipes that they need to follow for how to do tasks that can then call different MCPs as you go. You can have scheduling of all of these different things. And I'm like, this is like, so when I go like on my laptop, that's not that good. But for me, for my personal workflow, if I run this on a separate computer, then all of a sudden it can start every day at 3 a.m. And it can start cranking through like, you know, just reviewing everything that I did yesterday. And it can like build the review my change log, make sure it's really clear. It can set me up a schedule for the day. It can go and like create new feature branches for all the open features that I want to put in GitHub. It can, you know,
Wow.
it can start to prep everything for me so that when I come in, I'm ready to go, based on instructions that I give it myself that only exist on my machine. And then just use, like, again, if I start at 3 a.m. and it takes 2 hours to run that thing, well, I'm still in bed anyway.
Yep.
So who gives a fuck? Like, it's like in my Obsidian folder, I've got like a quick reference index where I'll crawl back through the Obsidian and just do a one-liner on any file that's changed. Like, what does this file do? What's in here? So you can find it quickly, which again is a very human way of looking stuff up.
Exactly.
But then the other bots use that. So one of the first things I'll do is I'll have to keep updating the index as I go, and update it every time. But I can just have that on a schedule running with Goose in the background. I can make sure that when I start my day, my index is up to date. Like all of my code is like checked in. I know I've got I could have like a daily briefing to say like, okay, I know you've slept. Like this is what we were up to yesterday. Here's where we're going.
Yeah,
next.
that's
I'm like,
cool.
fuck, this is like. So I'm just gonna build this for me.
Yeah.
Because this feels like I'm building like a whole software development company, and there's no software developers.
Yep.
And it's just like, these are the tools around me that can help me crank out more stuff.
Completely.
And I don't care. I just want this. I'm just like, I want this in my life. I'm going to have all these like super specific apps that are built for me.
Yeah.
Pete, you're going to
has-
sell something and make some money. Like, no, I'm busy. I'm busy just solving every problem that I've ever had.
Yeah. I like the framing there. It's like Uber has no cars, Airbnb has no homes, Pete has no software engineers.
Even Pete. And then I'm just going to crack on with Freedom Tech stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
It's like fleet, and then I'll just buy new computers every time I need more capacity.
Yeah, just keep stacking computers.
Well, that's it.
I like it,
I think with these Mac Minis as well, you can network them in a way that you can start to run pretty big local models on them. But I don't know if I need to just jump straight into that.
Yeah, sort of progression. We'll get there.
But you can have like one personal, one work, because it's like this is where the security concern does come in. It's like, all right, well, if I'm just going to let this thing go and treat it like a different person, I kind of want to segregate what it has access to and what it doesn't have access to, and just not give it everything.
Yeah.
So it will almost be like just hiring a person. I think that's the only way to think about it.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, all right, that's yours. That's your machine that you're going to work on. And it doesn't have any of my personal stuff on it. We'll use these vaults that are going to be the documentation and whatnot, and I can access them from the other machine if I want to.
Yeah.
I can remote into the machine, or I can just walk in to do stuff. I've noticed these days I'll be like cooking and like the computer's just going in the office, and I used to have to keep wandering backwards and forwards, whereas now I'm just on my phone and I've just got it, because it's quite nice because the root code, like obviously the interface is built to be a sidebar, so it actually fits quite nicely into your phone system, and I can just be like, do that.
That's
Don't do that, do this. And you can sort of guide it as it goes. And then what I was going to do is add like these little webhooks to it that just allow it to tell me when it's stuck.
So how do you think?
And then I can have more of them.
How do you think people should start to think about this way of working? Because it is like quite a shift, but we've also like gotten to this point through a lot of trial and error and play and experimentation, and there's probably like quite a dramatic shift from what people are used to in some respects too. Like, how do you think people should start to think about building in the slow code way? Is it just do what we did and just experiment your way to this kind of process?
I mean, intent and what we talked about the other day is I think we set up some tutorials about how to do this. Like I actually think this is kind of important. People should be aware. I mean, nobody will see any of it and care, but we
Not
still put
yet.
it out yet. The power of yet, as the kids would say. But yeah, it needs to be better known. So I think that's goal number one is we'll stick out a website, slowcode.otherstuff.ai, and then go from there. And like start putting together some tutorials, like how to work like this. What are the different like hooking points and supporting tools that you might use? Like saying like pipeline is I'm going to build these in pipeline and make those available as an MCP, so that you can hook them into whatever it is that you're using, be it Goose or Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and then you can just run them as you go. But yeah, it's kind of like just exploring this concept of like how do you code with AI effectively and quickly, and in a way that it's like, I mean, like I said it the other day, it's like vibe coding with guardrails. Like it's vibe coding that doesn't break all your stuff. Yeah, like that's a pretty powerful concept.
Yeah, but I mean, I think one of the important guardrails for me is just intentionality. Like and also like not losing the ability to think.
Yeah,
you don't want to be outsourcing all of your intellectualizing to a model. I think that's where there is just like implied laziness in a lot of the vibe coding philosophy. Is just like, oh, I've got this like really quick and easy idea, I'm just going to give you a 4-line prompt and you go one shot it. And it's just like, I think there's this is partly intentionality, it's partly wanting to really think through the problem you're solving, and then there's also this element of like friction that you kind of want to have, because that's where the rubber hits the road and where you actually figure out if there's something valuable here. Because like the one thing we haven't explored yet, I don't think, is like those user feedback loops when you're actually developing product for humans.
Yep.
Right now, like we're like big in the philosophy of building for an audience of one. We're like solving our own problems, so this is kind of all right. We can skip over that process because we're innately the ones building and we're solving for our own need. But when you've got like a broader audience that you're building for, having those feedback loops baked into it just requires you to not be absent from this process, I think.
Yep. I think
those are some of the guardrails I think will be useful. But I also think this is just like constantly evolving. It's evolving for us, right? I mean, you think about where we were even like 2 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. It's insane, the rate of progress.
Well, and interestingly, like this, like a lot of the changes that I've made recently came from thinking about how to work more in the sense of just writing. Like it wasn't even about code. It was just like, it is really important to separate out the different mindsets for different tasks. And then I thought, like, and like it was. We talked to Gav last week a lot about this. It was like, there's the drunk sober, and the editing and the writing. But I think maybe it was off the pod afterwards. We said there's probably there is a third piece here, which is like the ideation piece. Is actually that's not writing necessarily or editing. Like it's not the thinking and intellectualizing or the just putting in the execution. It's the other bit that's just free form. And so I think there is maybe you know what, I just realized that isn't something that we had a conversation about. That's a conversation that two of my AIs had a conversation that I read and went, that's a good idea. That's a good point.
Pretty good. I'm sure this wasn't a transcript.
They discussed the podcast afterwards. So that's one of the points they made. Oh, that's nuts. I didn't realize that. I thought that was something we talked about. I think I sent you the transcript.
I think I've read the transcript. That's why it
so
sounds
many
familiar.
of these transcripts, and they're so long that it's hard to keep up with. But and I was like, that is like, that's it. There's three aspects. There's the same. They map back to the three aspects of slow code that we've been dancing around. That's something like all this stuff is like there somewhere inside. This is just such an interesting way that they came out. But it's like there's a set of like thinking and styles that you use around the creativity. Another set for the editing and the planning down, and then another set for the doing. And you need to treat them distinct. Like the same, like we used to put these into 3 different people because that was the best way to do it. Because the person that does that is not necessarily good at this, is not necessarily good at this. That's why you had at least 3 people. But you can do it via mindset shifting, or just being flexible, or using other people to help you. And in this case, these other people can be these robots that you just train to do it.
Completely. Yeah. Well, one of the things you mentioned earlier that I wanted to make comment on was, I think you were talking about architectural decisioning as well. And because I was thinking about this as a limitation, especially for someone like me who's still like learning about this stuff.
Yeah.
But I find like that obstacle has just been smoothed out now, because I can take that one question I might have and I might just ask the model back, like, can you just explain this to me?
Yeah.
And I'll get to a point where I've been able to rationalize that architectural decision. This is the right thing to do in this context. And sometimes, we've gotten to a point where the language model's like, you know what, based on what you are actually looking for here, we probably need to make a change. And it will suggest an alternative and then give me the rationale for why the alternative is better. It'll give me the pros and cons. And just that process really helps me learn. So that shouldn't be an obstacle either if you're non-technical. Just spend the time.
Yeah.
That's... And you'll still get there so much faster than you would have previously, working with other people and essentially having to rely on this kind of trust that you have in other people as well, where that information asymmetry is just so vast. I just don't think you have that worry anymore.
Well, I reckon we can take some of the edges off this for people with some tutorials, maybe set up a Discord or something. So because this is an area I've got quite a lot of energy for this. Like I would be very interested to hear other people's ideas and like how we could riff on this and like what are the different styles of things that we would use for different parts of the process, and like how do you apply this to different frameworks. So my wife's just written a book, and I look at it and go, oh, I could have made your book writing experience like 100 times better if I'd have had all of these realizations 6 months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, this would make such an excellent writing tool. Because again, you've got this thing that's like almost too big to fit in your head in one go. But it could have used like various tools to abstract out the different like concepts in the book.
Yep.
You could have had these different like creativity tools, writing tools, editing tools. They could all be there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right,
that's a really useful insight, is being able to juggle all of that information contextually when you need it. I think we kind of talked about this a little bit last week when we teased out the health graph with Gav. It's like if you could talk to a medical PhD, and even they would really struggle to be able to hold all of these disparate pieces of knowledge in their head and be able to like perfectly apply it in any given context. And these models are really good at that if they've got a good good foundation. Like a graph is like quite good in that respect.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like there's just no limit to the applications people could explore with this framework, with this methodology. And I do like this idea of like a writing tool though. Like I feel like we've been dancing around this one and experimenting with it a fair bit. I think we should just build something there.
Yep.
Like we've already made I think like there are versions of what we've built for improving writing in various formats for us. But I do wonder if there's just this one writing tool that is really useful, that has the conversational element as well, where you can bash out ideas with agents, but they've got the context of what it is you're trying to actually go and write.
Yep.
And you can do the ideation with conversational agents. I think that's like the next level. That's really cool. In the same way you would do that with humans who have unique knowledge that you might be able to tap into for a book. I think that's really interesting. I mean, just the multi-agent setup is so useful. I think we're going to find endless use cases for that.
It's hard to do multiple agents, and even like it's like there's ways to go about some of these things inside like Claude and OpenAI, but they're not really built to do that. Like their philosophy from both of those companies is kind of, I will be the thing that you talk to, and I will have access to all of your stuff, and I will make the decision what I use. And it doesn't really, this is where I think Goose might win, right?
Yeah.
Goose feels like it respects the user. Yes, it's on a computer and it can control its computer like in much the same way as those, but it could go, I could be like 10 people. I'm like, you want to give me different instructions? Yeah, cool. You want to give me different access to that guy over there? That's okay. Like, it's not trying to be in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
There's something, like, it's only just, like, crystallizing in my head, but I'm like, oh, right, this thing actually respects me. And I'm not surprised, like, coming from Jack, that that's the case. Like, that makes sense to me.
It's on brand.
Like, how he would build it, And so I'm kind of excited to lean into that. The only downside I had is I was running a thing with Goose the other day, and I just had it running because I'd maxed out, like, all of my Claude credits. Like, this is done. I was like, oh, fuck. So I thought, all right, I'll just give Goose a little crack and see, like, how it works and how I can play with it and do these different things. And I had something just running. I just looked over at it and I was like, oh shit, you spent like about $3 just going in a loop on something. Like, that's annoying. Yeah. So it's kind of nice that with, like, Claude Desktop or something, like, I've paid my subscription, and it's useful to experiment in that space, because I'm like, all right, well, I don't care, like, how much you do, because I've got it. And then I did care because I blew out all my credits, and it was like, oh, they'll reset at 12 a.m. And then next morning I did one thing and it went, you've run out of credits again. I was like, well, that wasn't much of a sodding reset. Like, what's going on? But then I was like, all right, max plan. Let's see how this goes for a month.
It was probably overdue, to be fair, based on what you're doing.
I guess so many.
Yeah.
I spend so much money on this stuff. Like, this is the other thing. There's, like, people who just like, I can't just, like, keep giving these people, like, thousands of dollars a month unless you then put the effort into to test them all and to play with it and figure it all out. But that takes time as well. So most people don't have that time. So. Yeah, I think that's where that slow. I think this is where I'd like to do the slow code stuff. Is like, all right, let's see if there's. That feels like it's a really interesting and important thing. Like, I honestly think this is valuable enough that I'm probably going to go and spend more money on a computer to implement it. Like, so it's always running.
Yeah, completely.
I
also think it it manages a lot of the critiques of vibe coding quite well because of that intentionality. Like, a lot of people just be like, well, you're baking a heap of, like, risk into your product by just vibe coding it, and there's probably a lot of truth to that as well. But
you could have taught for the last 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Any senior engineer that you talk to, if you ask them like what the hard part is of coding, or like what's important and what you need to know, they would never have said it's about the code. They've always said it's about, first of all, it's know what to build, which is a big problem. But then it's about, like, well, exactly how do you do it, and how do you solve the problem and the algorithms? Like, if you're good at algorithms and you're good at thinking about, here's a problem, how would I solve that in a logical way? That was the thing that mattered.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing inside, like, slow code versus maybe vibe coding is you're taking that piece of, like, logically, how do I solve it, out of the execution stream. Because the execution stream really, it is done like, what's it called when you just talk? Stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
So, like, that I think that's the problem with vibe coding. Vibe coding is a straight stream of consciousness of something.
Yeah.
Versus, like, slow coding would be like saying, like, all right, well, let's plan out what we're going to say and then give a speech.
Yeah.
You know, like, it still looks like someone's just talking at the end of it, but one of them has had some upfront effort put into it, and we take the bits that really mattered in coding, which was the problem solving and the algorithm piece, and you put them into this slower, more considered piece, so that you can run the execution speed as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of like a subtle difference, which I hadn't thought about, but that, I think that maps
definitely makes sense.
Tracks to what we're doing.
Yeah. All right. I think that's good. I think maybe, like, if people have ideas around this stuff as well, like, reach out, get in touch.
Drop them in the comments on, I think we've got comments on Spotify. They're like on Fountain, like, if you boost us on Fountain with a comment, like, we'll certainly see that.
Yeah, completely.
YouTube comments.
I'm sure, like, a lot of guys are experimenting with this as well and having their own insights that might track to this stuff.
I feel like every time we talk about tools, people get excited about it, so it'd be curious. Yeah, actually, interesting. There was, I don't know how long we've been going for.
We're probably just about on time, to be honest.
Yeah. So maybe a quick one was, as a friend of the pod, Crispy, was asking about Flowwise, which I kind of like Flowwise as a visual tool for just experimenting with some of these things. So it's basically like a visual workflow / agent creation tool that you can use that sits on top of LangGraph. And LangGraph has, like, a whole bunch of just, like, abstractions that help you quickly build AI agents. And so you can do some quite interesting things quite quickly by visually connecting all of these different agents and just getting them to run through scenarios, and you can, it's got a full chat framework. You can look at the history of stuff, and it feels like, several times I'll look at it and go, this is the thing. I should just be building stuff on this. And then I almost immediately run into a situation where I lose like a day or two, like arguing with it about trying to figure out, like, well, why are you not giving me the right thing there that should work here? And then realizing that, like, oh, it's just not worth it. I just build it all myself from scratch and do it in a way. But it's a good tool to experiment with there. One of the things that occurred to me is that like the AI models that actually do the work for me, like, 'cause I actually don't need to see any of this stuff visual. The point of it being visual and no code is that I don't have to interact with the code. But what I lose from that is any of the flexibility or like the inquiring into what actually happened under the hood when something goes wrong. So if something fails, I don't know why it failed, and therefore it's hard for me to fix. But in the slow code world, I'm already not looking at the code anyway. But at least now the thing that does look at the code on my behalf, so when I'm it's also worth bearing in mind the technical co-founder Claude sort of aspect of it also has read access to all the code, like at real time. And so it can discuss with me like how the code works and what could be going wrong in various different elements. So it's like, I don't know, like I just found, I don't think I need visual no code tools anymore. I think they're, if anything, more of a liability, because the things that they do to make it easy for humans to interact with, I'm already leaning on the LLM anyway to answer me the question. So why would I ask an LLM to teach me how to do something in like a real world, like visual space that I don't, like it can't know in the same way that it can know the code. Like it's much easier for it to just read the code than to try and interpret from like a set of incomplete documentation how the thing might be working that I'm running. And I'm like, you know what? I think it's easier to just do this. Like, and even Flowwise inside it has like an AI thing where you can try and talk a workflow into existence. I don't know how well it works or not. I never really bothered using it. But if I'm going to do that, well, I may as well just talk to Claude anyway and have it build the whole workflow for me. Because I, as we discovered in the cafe the other day, like even not paying any attention to this inside a cafe, I can already talk these things into existence.
This is the future of work.
So why bother building a whole, because it just adds more complexity to that product. It's like what I actually want, if I wanted something out of that product, it would be the running of the workflows. But I don't need to build the product to do that. Otherwise I've got to build all this visual stuff on it. I've got a whole bunch of other frameworks. It's
unnecessary. Right?
It adds complexity, and it's like I can already do this whole thing, and I've got that as like Pipeline's an open source project on my GitHub. Like anybody can just come in and start building stuff. The only thing is that nobody can actually use it because it's currently kind of hard coded into Everest API logic. Which I need to make that open source at some point. I just don't. I probably need to just destroy all the Git history and then publish it, and it'd be fine. Because there's nothing in there that's like secretive. It's just that I probably fucked up at some point. There's probably like a bunch of like just secrets and stuff that I need to delete out of there.
One of your observations there as well was about the technical co-founder having access to the code. And this is the limitation of my more manual approach to this. Is I'm constantly being the interface between the agent in Cursor and the technical co-founder, which is not ideal. So this was one of the other big reasons to, I'm sure it was part of the animus for you to switch to this approach as well, because it makes sense the technical co-founder should have that.
Well, and that's why I thought it was, originally I thought, well, probably the answer is just you have your documents and you have your code all inside the Git repository, and you interact with it through this one app, which is Rucode, Klein, Cursor, whatever, Replit. And then I was like, no, that doesn't respect the drunk and the sober. And you've got to respect the drunk and the sober in this instance. And as soon as I, like the difference is that it even changed my mindset. Like when I was in Cursor, Ru, whatever, like it was, I kind of wanted to get done with the prompting because it wasn't, there was nothing like nice about it. Like it wasn't as nice as working in a document or a different space. Like it just felt like, oh, I'm in this tiny cramped little sidebar. I'm making these I'm reading like Markdown that isn't rendered properly, or I've got to then click and render it properly. Oh God, who clicks? And then I can't edit it, and it's like, it was just, the whole thing felt nicer moving into this slightly abstracted space with a different mindset and nicer looking windows and a sepia back tone. Like all this sort of crap that, like, instead of like dark mode, like hacker man space. And you're like, no, this is the thing. This makes a difference. And all of a sudden I was just like cranking shit out. Yeah,
the productivity really took off.
And then you realize, and it's in a way that I've been I've been scared to use some of these tools inside Beacon because I cared about that as a project.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like manually crafting a lot of stuff there. And like doing like point fixes with AI, but being like very specific about it. Whereas now I'm like, all right, well, let's start doing like full features in one go all of a sudden. And it's like, I think I can get it moving a lot quicker all of a sudden. And even there, like, you know, I'm building that as a reference implementation of an idea. So it's like, right, well, if this reference implementation needs to get thrown away at some point, it's fine.
Yeah.
But let's get the whole idea out of like how it works, how the interactions work, how you meld the AI, the Bitcoin stuff, and like all the other agentic things that we want to develop and push them out. So
very nice.
And on that tease,
there we go.
should you say that's the good stuff?
That's the good stuff.